Hello, my name is Charlene Garcia-Simms, and I am the Genealogy and Special Collections Librarian at Rawlings Library. And I'm starting a series called History in Our Own Backyard. And today I'm going to be talking about Cuerno Verde and Juan Bautista de Anza and a decisive battle that took place September 3rd, 1779. Before I get into that day, I want to talk about a timeline in the 1700s to kind of give you a perspective of what was going on in the world. In 1772, shoelaces were invented in England. Who would have known? In 1775, Mozart at 19 was composing his beautiful music. In 1789, we had the French Revolution that started. And in the United States, in 1732, George Washington was born. In 1743, Thomas Jefferson was born. In 1756, the French and Indian War started. And in 1770, we had the Boston Massacre, followed by the Boston Tea Party in 1775. In 1776, we had the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and the American Revolution started. Luckily, it ended, and in 1789, George Washington was our first president. In the Southwest, New Mexico had been colonized by Spain in 1598. In 1680, the Pueblo Indian Revolt forced the Spanish back to El Paso. In 1692, New Mexico was reconquered. And in the 1700s, the Spanish and Pueblos learned to live side by side. But the Plains Indians raided the villages and Pueblos, and people lived in fear of attack. There were droughts and locust infestations, and everyone was scrambling for survival and division of resources. In July 1771, Father Junipero Serra founded 3 missions in California, and a few years later, Tucson, Arizona was founded as a Spanish presidio, and Pueblo, Colorado would remain part of New Spain until 1821. Pueblo, August 30th, 31st, September 1st, 1779, something took place at exit 106, right in our own backyard. Have any of you ever passed this exit and even thought about something very exciting happening here in 1779? Well, we're going to learn about that. The Comanche Indians arrived in the Pueblo Indian world in early 1700s to acquire horses. They were known as the Comanche horse lords of the plains and became the dominant group. The Comanche raids struck terror to their enemies. They made enemies of the Apaches and the Utes, and they would come to regret this. The Comanches were part of the Shoshone family, but the band split into 2 groups, and they assumed a different identity. The buffalo was very important for food, teepees, blankets, lariats, tools, etc. However, it was their horsemanship that distinguished them, disciplined from an early age to hone their riding skills. They had more horses than they needed, and the horse was a symbol of power and wealth. Tabito Narigand, also known as Cuerno Verde II, a battle in Ojo Caliente, New Mexico in 1768 set the stage for more hostilities. The Comanches attacked Ojo Caliente and they lost. Among the casualties was their leader wearing a green-horned headdress. He was a heroic figure to his people. What would they do without him? They turned to his son, Tabito Narigand. Most historians agree that he salvaged his father's green-horned headdress and wore it with honor. Green was sacred to the Comanches. Cuerno Verde II swore he would get revenge, and he pursued his vengeance against the Spanish with exceptional ferocity. Settlers or Indians wanted to get captured by the Comanches under his cruel leadership. As they became the dominant force in the plains area, his attacks became more brazen. His attacks were relentless, and the Spanish wondered if they could survive. My genealogy goes back to New Mexico, and I find entries where whole families were killed in one day, or one child, or a parent. So I really think this is because of the raids. There were good governors and bad governors. Tomás Velez Chupin was a good governor, and he served 2 terms prior to Anza in New Mexico. He gained insight into the Comanches' dual strategy of war and trade through trial and error. He understood they used war to define and preserve the collective sense of honor. It was Velez's diplomatic skills that allowed Spain to enter into a mutual relationship with the Comanches. However, the next governor, Fermín de Mendiuneta, was not diplomatic and made things much worse, so raid after raid occurred. After the first Cuerno Verde's death in 1768 at the hands of the Spanish, there was a responsibility to avenge his death. But there was also drought and a shortage of food supply, and Cuerno Verde II intensified his attacks on the Pueblos and Spanish people of New Mexico. The attacks wore Governor Mendiuneta out, and he was relieved of his governorship in 1778. The new governor would be Juan Bautista de Anza. Juan Bautista de Anza had founded San Francisco in 1776. He took 240 people along 2,000 miles of very treacherous territory. And he founded San Francisco on June 29, 1776. Juan Bautista de Anza was Basque, and I have found Basque ancestry in our Chuleta ancestor. And they are unique. We are finding that they have unique DNA markers and that they have their own language. And Anza was Basque, son of Juan Bautista de Anza, spelled A-N-S-S-A. There are 3 ways to spell Anza, and we are more familiar with A-N-Z-A. And his father migrated to New Spain in 1712. The Basques who came to Mexico developed a network of merchants, bankers, silver magnates, administrative and church officials who tended to look after their own. They were very powerful, and Juan Bautista was part of this group. He was the son of a military officer born in Frontera, Sonora, New Spain in July 1736. He enlisted in the military in 1752, and by 1760 he was a captain. In 1774 he was a lieutenant colonel. After founding San Francisco in 1776, he was appointed governor and settled in Santa Fe as governor of New Mexico in December 1778. He was a perfect choice. His priority? To subdue the Comanches and negotiate a trade agreement. Anza was an Indian fighter and strategist from way back. It didn't take him long to assess the situation. It took him 8.5 months to plan and prepare. He had to get the men and the horses ready, and the strength of his plan depended on the element of surprise. He was going to take a different route to get to Cuerno Verde. On August 15, 1779, the stage was set, the players were ready, and at 3 in the afternoon, the curtain was drawn on Anza's 1779 Comanche Campaign. He left with 600 men and over 1,500 horses. 200 Utes and Apaches would join him with their own horses. He had 1 chaplain, 1 drummer, 5 captains, 5 lieutenants, 4 ensigns, 1 cadet, hundreds of soldiers, militia, and Indians. Several of his men acted as scouts, which was very important, so Anza knew what was going on ahead of him. There would be 1 casualty, Domingo Anaya, and it was not battle-related, so he didn't even lose anybody in battle. This is real personal to me because 3 of my great-great-grandparents were part of this entourage. And Dr. Wilfred Martinez, who wrote a book on the Comanche campaign, his grandfather was a cartographer on this journey. The maps of the campaign, Bernardo Mira y Pacheco, which I just mentioned, was Dr. Martinez's, I believe, 7th great grandfather. This is the map that he drew, and it is something that all historians look at. The map to your right is a topographical map, and the map in the middle is the attack map that Anza devised. And he started in Santa Fe, went to Ojo Caliente, into the San Luis Valley, into Poncha Springs, Fluorescent, Ute Pass, Colorado Springs area, and into Pueblo. The list of events from Colorado Springs on August 30th, 31st, and September 1st are from Anza's diary. And on August 30th, he set up camp in Cascade. On August 31st, he said he got closer into Manitou, and then he moved within 1.5 miles of a Comanche camp. He attacked the camp, but the warriors were on a raiding expedition in Taos, and he still attacked the people that were there. And the Comanches fled at exit 141. Anza pursued the Comanches, and a running battle began and ended between exit 139 and 135. Anza set up camp after dividing the spoils at exit 132. Anza found the Comanche Trail on September 1st and crossed the fountain at exit 128. He camped 9 miles north of Pueblo at exit 106, which I showed earlier. And the reason we know this exit is because Dr. Martinez hired a horse expert. He was trying to figure out how much a league was, because that's how they measured distance. And I think it turned out to be a league is 3 miles. The first battle took place September 2nd, and the decisive battle took place September 3rd. On September 2nd, Anza crossed the Arkansas River. After 5 miles, Anza stopped to rest his horses. He moved 3 miles and was told Cuerno Verde was coming from the Taos raids. Anza crossed the gully and attacked Cuerno Verde. The fighting ceased for the day. Anza camped on the north side. On September 3rd, the fighting resumed in the morning, and Cuerno Verde was trapped in a gully. Cuerno Verde was killed before 10:30 a.m. As if it was any other day, Anza left the area to Bonito and camped there. He crossed the Sangres into the San Luis Valley and back into Taos and Santa Fe. The battlefield has always been a controversy, and it had to do with the mistranslation of a word, which I'll talk about too in a minute. But it is really Burnt Mill Road near the St. Charles River that the battlefield probably took place. The word Zanja was mistranslated to bog, a marsh or swamp, in the diary that Anza kept. The correct translation should have been gully, a water-rown ravine, canyon, gorge, gulch. Dr. Wilfred Martinez's discovery that the word bog should have been gully in the translation of Anza's diary was invaluable to finding where he felt 99.9% the battle took place. The gully was actually the St. Charles River in plain sight at the 18-mile mark mentioned in Anza's diary, but had been overlooked because of the translation error. There are other theories, but Dr. Martinez has more credence in his theory. Many agree, and those who don't are still trying to disprove his theory. Some think it might have been Graneros Canyon, and it could have been. It's just a little deep, but this is just really neat about research. You can continue doing it. The importance of Cuerno Verde's defeat. The raiding by Comanche stopped. Arapaho and Cheyenne were able to move to the plains and trade with people from Taos. Anza established peace between the Comanche and the Spanish. He refused to enter into peace talks until the tribe agreed on a single chief. That person was Chief Equitacapa, and the peace was agreed upon in 1786. Anza left office in 1787 and died suddenly the following year in Sonora. The peace he executed lasted into the 19th century, making the opening of the Santa Fe Trail in 1821 much easier. And this is really important because when the first merchant arrived in Santa Fe, it opened up westward expansion, and eventually the United States would take over this territory. However, the battle with Native Americans for the land of their ancestors would last towards the end of the 19th century, a sad part of history. There's a roadside marker at Greenhorn Meadows Park in Colorado City, and it misidentifies the battle. And it reads, in this vicinity, the Comanche chief Cuerno Verde, Greenhorn, the cruel scourge, was defeated and killed by the Spaniards under Governor Juan Bautista de Anza on September 3rd, 1779. The nearby mountain and stream take their name from the chief. Anza was the first expedition through certain parts of Colorado property, and this is a property of the state of Colorado. There's also a roadside marker in Vineland on Lane 36 east of Pueblo. Have any of you seen this? And the inscription reads, the Comanche signed a peace treaty in 1786, and a year later they asked for Spanish assistance to build a permanent farm village. The Spanish provided workmen, tools, farming implements, seed, and livestock to help found San Carlos de los Upis. But Comanche religious beliefs caused abandonment of the village within a year because a member of the tribe died there, and they believed, they needed to close it down. It is believed that San Carlos de los Upis was just west at the confluence of the Arkansas and San Carlos rivers. And here we have Greenhorn, Cuerno Verde Valley, Greenhorn, Cuerno Verde Mountain, very beautiful. And I'm so happy that we named our library there Greenhorn, or Cuerno Verde. In conclusion, the history that I'm sharing happened in our own backyard. Yet how many people know who Cuerno Verde, Greenhorn Mountain, was named after and why? Some people may know who Cuerno Verde was, but how many people know about Juan Bautista de Anza? The challenge of where the decisive battle took place is still being investigated, even though Dr. Martinez feels 99.9% that his theory is fact. The Anza Society has much more information about Juan Bautista de Anza on their website. If you are interested, check it out. What happened to Cuerno Verde's headdress? Did it have one horn or two horns? Well, it is said that the headdress was sent to New Spain, which is now Mexico, and that it was sent to the King of Spain, and then it ended up at the Vatican. And Dr. Martinez was investigating whether it was at the Vatican, and he did make a contact with kind of a low-level department, but then he became ill and wasn't able to follow up the leads. So this is still open for investigation. And there is so much more to learn. I hope your historical appetite has been awakened and challenged to find out more. And I wouldn't be a good librarian if I didn't tell you the books that we have in our special collections department. We have some on Bernardo Miray Pacheco, the cartographer on the journey, Dr. Martinez's book, Decisive Battle. We have a wonderful book by Dr. Carlos Herrera from one of the universities in San Diego, Juan Bautista de Anza, the King's Governor in New Mexico. And Ron Kessler from the San Luis Valley is probably the first one that really started writing about him and developed so much interest. And the scholarly book that has been written was by Dr. Barnaby Thomas, Forgotten Frontiers, excellent book. And we have Los Comanches, and then we have Anza. And there are articles by Don Garate, a historian and portrayer of Anza. He was here in 2001 and did a Chautauqua presentation, and there was also a Comanche panel that day that gave their viewpoint. And so for you, those of you that are interested, your job is to learn a little bit more. My job is to find a video that was taken of this presentation at PCC. So continue researching, and thank you very much.